So tell me a little bit about like how do you plan to scale?
We're actually going to be selling leads and starting intake services and doing that for them where they can pay for leads and then pay for someone to close them or pay for a live transfer or pay for them to actually get it signed up for them themselves.
How many leads are you guys generating a month?
So we generate about 1,100 leads yesterday is what we did. We're signing about 130 to 140 retainers a day.
What are some things that you've had to do over the years and like what are the lessons learned from it?
So
What exactly does the company do?
Yeah.
You guys have already done over $100 million and it's like a space that people probably have never even thought about or heard of.
Right. I mean, growing up, I didn't think if you told me as a little girl I'd be working with personal injury lawyers, I'd ask you, what in the world is a personal injury lawyer, right?
I don't think that was the dream.
No, it wasn't. It was definitely not. But what the company does, like the easiest way to say it is we're pretty much a matchmaking service for personal injury lawyers and people who have been injured in a car accident. So instead of someone calling a lawyer because you don't know what type you may need or if they have the best experience, they call us and we vet the lawyer for them and we match them with an attorney who can help them get the maximum compensation pretty much that they deserve.
Right. So do you already have like these attorneys in your back pocket for different areas and things?
Mm-hmm.
Got
Yeah.
it.
So we vetted them. So they go through a pretty extensive process. Like we want to make sure that they're legit and they can scale with us and help the people and do what they need to do. And so we've found these guys and then we go out and help people that have been injured and find them and then match it with a lawyer.
I love it. And I want to, later on in the podcast, I want to get into like even how this idea came about, how the business has grown over the years, because I'm super curious about this model because I'm kind of doing something similar with running marketing for real estate investors and helping them get deals and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I'm fascinated by it, but also I'm more fascinated by what you guys are doing with the money you're making. So how did that happen?
So we were actually in a sermon at Life Church in Oklahoma City, and they had a guest speaker, and he was talking about irrational generosity. And so this was in March of 19, right before COVID hit. Okay, so hearing this, and he's talking about how he's like given away a house, he's given away cars. And I leaned over to my husband and I said like, hey, I want to give away 50% of our revenue. And he was like, you don't make 50% margins. Like we can't.
we would go bankrupt.
Yes. And he's like, that math doesn't math. And so we started, I'm like, well, what can I do? Because I'm a reactor. So whenever I feel something like,
let's give it all.
Yes. Like, it doesn't make sense. Just figure it out. And he said, let's give away 50% of our profit. And so right then and there, like we decided, okay, this is what we're going to do. And the month that we decided to do it, that's when the world shut down. So we actually we committed and then we started getting fired from attorneys because they had no money to spend. They had no intake. They didn't know what they were going to do. We had employees quitting. And that was the first time we wrote the check. Yeah. And what was crazy is, we write this check and a few hours later, I get a call from a personal injury lawyer in California saying like, hey, I hear you're the only one who can develop leads right now. And I need to place a $300,000 order. And to date, that was like the largest like single order we had ever gotten.
Yeah.
And it was just like, God, like, okay, I see. And so it was not that every time we've written a check, but it shows that with obedience, right? Like it was a test and we were faithful and our business has just multiplied and it's just been pretty amazing watching it happen.
Yeah. So since then, I mean, the business, like you said, keeps multiplying year over year.
Yeah.
And how has it been like with that change? Like as far as, do you put two and two together? Like, hey, because we chose to be faithful and obedient, God blessed our business, like what else happened?
I would just say it's unexplainable.
Yeah.
To me, if you aren't a Christian, like if you look at it, you're like, man, I don't know what she's done. She must be really lucky. But for people that know us, like we pray for favor every day, right? We step out in faith, giving away half, even whenever we don't know if it's going to be the best month or not. Because we actually started, instead of waiting until the end of the month, we do it like in our forecast. So we actually do it at the beginning. So we're stepping out in even more faith. So I think it's just changed every area of our life. Like we have 5 kids, and so our kids know that we're very generous too. So we've even got them built into it. The way that we hire is different. So even our top level executives, they've actually came on and they were from Match.com and Goldman Sachs, and they were coming over because, they could have gotten paid a ton of money, but they wanted to work for something different.
Yeah.
And so they do well, but they're like, man, like the reason we came over here was because you give away half your profit.
Yeah.
So people are attracted to it and they want to be working with us. And we've made more giving away half than we ever would have just holding it to ourselves.
I love it.
Mm-hmm.
And I can already think in the background of just, I don't know, the haters are like, well, I call them critical Christians.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, well, the Bible says you should make all your giving in secret. So
Mm-hmm.
what would you say about that?
I would say that it depends on your why. So I felt the same way.
Mm-hmm.
I was raised Southern Baptist in the Bible Belt.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of naysayers, I would say. But, I wrestled with it and I talked to my husband and he was like, but charities that don't know about you and they need help, what about them?
Yeah.
So when you go out and you start saying, hey, like we give away half and we want to find people. So like yesterday we did a social pledge of like, hey, we're going to give away $10,000, nominate a charity. Because I don't know the charities out there. We don't know every single one because they don't have a lot of resources.
Mm-hmm.
And so we find out these charities and then we partner with them. And from what I know, the Bible says to be fruitful and multiply. And that's what we're doing. So I think it all depends on your why and why you're doing it.
Yeah. I would add to that too. For me personally, I've talked about certain times I've given and other, many cases I haven't.
Yeah.
And I think it all just stems to, why are you doing it, right?
Yeah.
Are you doing it to glorify yourself and boost your own ego or status or whatever? Or are you doing it for the reason of, well, no, dude, I have to do this so that people understand and they know that this is what they should be doing as well. And this is the right way to do it. And, to your point, by making it known, now people are going to present themselves as opportunities for us to give to that we would have otherwise not known.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm in agreement on that. I think it's just having it comes down to intention.
Yeah.
For why you're doing it.
I totally agree.
Yeah. So tell me about just how all this started.
Mm-hmm. So in 2008, when the economy crashed, I was at college at UCO. And so I was selling phones at AT&T. And someone came in to actually return a phone. And I sold it back to them. Like I educated them on how to use the phone. So I remember the phone. It was a Moto Q. And they did TV commercials for personal injury lawyers. And he said, hey, you're fantastic at sales. I'd really like for you to come and be my assistant and help me sell these personal injury lawyers. And he worked in Dallas. And so every Oklahoma girl like wanted to work in Dallas. That's when you knew you made it. And so
to get out of Oklahoma.
Yes, it was then. And now it's not, but it was, big city.
Yeah.
Right. And so I got the offer and it was like $40,000 a year being an executive assistant. And the whole point of going to college was to get a job. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So went down there and I started being the executive assistant. And then I really just kind of grew my way throughout the company, ended up running the company. And I started the SEO division of it. And really it was just through problem solving. So I would sit there and hear these guys that are worth 10, 20, $100 million talking about their problems with their staff or their paralegals or the marketing or what was happening. And I asked the owners, I said, hey, if I start the SEO division here, because we were paying a consultant $50,000 in California, I said, can I get part of the profit? And they said yes. And so then our SEO division ended up overtaking the TV commercial side.
Wow.
And so what was funny is as I started that, I would see the clicks go up, the calls go up, but the cases not go up in the same percentage. And so then I started listening to phone calls. And then I started asking like, hey, what do you pay your people? And these guys would spend $1 million a month on a media buy and they would pay their people minimum wage.
Makes no sense.
Exactly. And I'm like, excuse me, what? And so I was like, hey, if I can do this better, will you pay me?
Real estate investors, are you tired of getting low quality leads and talking with sellers who've been hit up by everyone else? Well, what if you could get inbound leads of motivated sellers on autopilot without any effort. Well, that's exactly what we do at Lead Kitchen. Over the years, I've spent millions of dollars on direct-to-seller marketing. I've done PPC, I've done TV commercials, I've done cold calling, text messaging, direct mail. I've done the pay-per-lead services. And look, all of them can work. A lot of them don't. At the end of the day, I have found a new method that is getting me better results than I've ever seen in my career. I'm getting lower cost per leads than ever before, and it's not just in Las Vegas, it's across the country. And so if you want to take advantage of this new innovative marketing strategy that takes no effort on your end, I want you to go to leadkitchen.com and book a call with my team today. Imagine having my team running your marketing with the same leads that I'm getting in my business. That's what you can have. So just go to leadkitchen.com today and book a call.
And so, because I'm like, I don't want to get fired because your people, like, that's not my problem. Like, let me just try it. So it was really kind of like the assertiveness of getting it done. And then I had my daughter. I was married at the time and decided I want to move back home to Oklahoma and moved back to Oklahoma. And then I actually got to be I had the opportunity to be the COO of a law firm in Newport Beach, which you didn't really have to convince me to go out to Newport.
Yeah, that sounds good.
That's okay, right? And so I started to learn a lot more. And then I was flying back and forth, and I would spend a week there and a week in Oklahoma. And I asked him, I said, hey, listen, if I get back into it, instead of you paying me on a monthly retainer, what if we just did a per lead cost and I just get it, like I just do the intake in Oklahoma? It's much cheaper, a lot easier. And he said, yeah. And then he told a friend, and then a friend told a friend. And whenever I decided to actually start my company, I was at the Quintessa winery in Napa. So it's named after a wine.
Yeah.
So I was doing some wine tasting in the morning and decided it was a good idea to start my company. And
you're like, this name sounds good.
Yeah, it's great. It's fine. So after that and in and out, I decided it was time to start the company.
This was what year?
So this was in 2016. So my daughter was close to a year.
Okay. So you got a newborn.
Yep.
You are kind of branching off into your own thing now. You had worked in the industry for, 6 years, just kind of getting the hang of what these lawyers want and need. And you get to see the back end of what they're used to paying and how their process works and how bad their salespeople are.
Oh, yes. It was pretty bad.
Yeah. And so how does it evolve from there?
So, from there, I mean, I tell everyone, I can tell you a million ways how not to run this company. Like, we have learned it because, there's no other company who does what we do at scale. So
there's lots of lead providers, but there's nobody like closing people for you and partnering in that way.
No, I mean, there have been a lot of imitators. Like, it's great, right? Like, it's fun for them to come out, but then they're gone in like a month because it's very difficult to manage people. I mean, we're pretty much trying to interrupt the flow and get them signed and still make a profit off of what we're selling to the attorney and still make sure that they make good money. So, I mean, it's a pretty hard thing to manage for sure.
Yeah, because the attorney's got to come out of pocket upfront cost, and they're typically not getting paid till years down the road.
So it takes average 6 to 9 months is normally their standard on what it takes, except for like crazy states like New York. But their ROI is 3 to 6x on what they invest with us. That's normally standard of kind of what they see if they have good processes. But just like you deal with like probably bad real estate investors, we deal with the same thing with some bad PI lawyers.
Yeah.
So if they don't have good back end processes, they'll be like, well, your leads. I'm like, your competitor.
This is every lead provider's problem.
Oh, and that's why we wanted to sign it up. And I'm like, if I'm signing the case for you and you're still messing it up, like, I've got
we already
nothing
did the
else.
deal. Like, what else? Just fulfill. Just
Exactly.
Actually be a lawyer. You don't even have to worry about the business side of it now.
Correct.
We already did the sales and marketing. All you have to do is literally do what you went to school for.
Right. And that's what we're like, you're going to do what you do best and be a lawyer. And we're going to do what we do best and be the marketer and getting it signed up for you. And so for a lot of attorneys that have great processes, they'll dump in $2 million a month and they're putting 80% of their budget with us and they're getting fantastic ROI. So it really speaks to the processes of the back, like the operational excellence of like the attorney and like how, what are they doing? How many cases? So we've really changed our vetting process to be able to ask them and dig into it and find out like, are they best partner for us to work with them?
Right. So you start, this process, like at what point, because I'm sure it started out with you just kind of like sending leads to them, right?
Oh, well, it always started with a retainer, but you have to understand, like I had like $300,000 in debt and I was going through a divorce
Mm.
And I like hand developed the system, which was like just sending the e-sign and then typing out the information in an email. So it was like homegrown is like kind. Like it was horrible to start out with.
How are you getting leads, with very little money?
Well, I had a credit card, and so I put it on Google Ads. So we were really good at pay-per-click.
Got it.
And so, but we had this system, and it was green, yellow, red. And green was if we made enough money, I could take my daughter out to eat. Yellow was like I could go to my mom's, and then red was like you've got to eat at home. Like that was, so it was really funny. But all of our employees knew like that's something simple that we graded ourselves by whenever we had like 2 employees. And so, but yeah, just I've always started with retainers and always did that. We used to sell like, hey, 100% is going to be a guaranteed thing.
Yeah.
And we offered refunds. Well, then we got taken advantage of.
Mm-hmm.
So then we had a no refunds model, and that was the model that shifted in probably 21.
Okay.
And once we changed that, then it really kind of changed the complexity of it all, because trying to tell a lawyer they're wrong doesn't really go over very well.
And, I can only think of the amount of lawsuits you'll get not giving a refund.
Yeah, it was an event. And so now we've got very clear expectations. We know how to be able to scale an attorney, and we also know like the best one that we're looking for. So
yeah, at the end of the day, you just need great attorneys who know how to handle your leads.
Yes.
That's literally, it's so funny you're talking about this because I'm about to scale my version of this for real estate investors. So to get like people who follow the show, you would know, but I'll give you the context. So like, we target home sellers and we want them to sell us their home, right? And so realtors do the same thing, except we're trying to make cash offers for the home, and we got to buy it at a discount and all that, right? So I've done this for 10 years now. And we do it for ourselves. We pay for leads, we close them, we handle the operational side of either selling the deal to another investor or buying it ourselves, flipping it, making money. So I had this realization because I've, have thousands of students now, and they all struggle with leads. And it's every business's problem, period. And I'm like, man, we're getting really good at marketing and Facebook ads and social media and all these things because I've spent millions on myself. And I'm like, why don't I just run my own ads for other people like me?
Yeah.
I'm making the ads anyway. It's not that much harder to go run it in Oklahoma.
No.
And so I was like, yeah, I'm just going to do that. So I just took my top students. I'm like, here's the deal, guys. XYZ, I'm going to run them here. You're covering the spend. And, we're going to do a profit split. And then boom, like it was the easiest sell ever. And now they're like super stoked because they're getting leads just like that. They don't have to do nothing. But, they are in charge of closing them. They're in charge of, fulfilling them. So it is a lead-based model versus kind of like but in our world, if I close the deal, then I'm just going to take it to the finish line. There's no need to involve anyone else.
Well, and I think what's really hard is finding leads, but it's also finding like people with integrity to develop the leads, right? That to me is like the hardest thing. So like what you're doing and developing for them, like if they're good at closing and selling it like that, I mean, golly, that's scalable. That's amazing.
Very easy for us and for them. And so I'm really excited about that. So I'm glad like I have you on because you're already like years ahead of doing this. And to your point, integrity matters because with these guys, I mean, we're doing a profit split on the back end. So it's like, hey, at the end of the day, I got to trust that they're going to do a good job with the leads and have integrity and everything else. So it's like the due diligence of the people you're doing business with. Like that part I've realized is the most, I just need really good operators.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's really hard because on our model where we used to give full refunds, we would have people asking for refunds and ending up working the leads.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I just want to make sure I'm very clear. We both have to make money for this to work. Like if you're making all the money, then we're not going to stay in business.
Yeah.
So you have to be able to do both.
Yeah.
So,
well, we've seen this with, in the real estate space, they have pay per lead and, I don't know what the upcharge is. Maybe you would have a better idea, but I think they're probably upcharging 3x, 4x, whatever the lead cost is to somebody else. And I do know that, some of them have refund policies and other things like, oh, if there wasn't like a qualified lead, we'll give you a refund, whatever. So I understand why they got to charge 4x or whatever. But it's interesting because when you sell leads to anybody and everybody, right? I've thought about it from a reputational standpoint. It's like the leads could be great, but if you suck, WealthCon is coming back to Las Vegas, July 19th to the 21st. And man, if you are a real estate investor, you have got to attend this event. We are going to have some of the best in the game coming, guys like Brandon Turner and many others. This is going to be my favorite one yet. We're going to be at the Caesars Palace. Come hang out with over 1,000 investors and entrepreneurs who are trying to scale their business. You might meet your next private lender. You might meet your next partner. You might meet your next employee or the next person who's going to give you a deal. WealthCon is an event like no other. We have done it every single quarter now for the last 18 quarters straight because people keep coming back because they are getting results and they are having life change. Not only is it a great business event, but we also have a worship service. We have a pastor come. It is so cool. There's no event like it. So if you want to come, make sure you go to wealthcon.org and get your ticket today. Once again, that's wealthcon.org. You're going to say the leads suck and we look bad, and that's not the case. You just suck.
Well, and that's what's hard. Like we have 3 firms right now that are in, let's say just the Southeast region.
Yeah.
We have one firm converting at 85%, one firm at 50, and one firm at like 65. And the 50% is like, your leads are trash. I'm like, I just want to be very clear. I have your competitor in the same market converting the same campaigns at 85%. So like, it's not us. Like you are the problem.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. We have the data. Everyone else is getting deals but you.
It is. But what's really hard is the ones that like when you hear bad things about Quintessa, it's not from the ones who love us, right? Like it's from the ones who we fired or, we ended up going separate ways because they had back end issues. And so it is like it ends up hurting your reputation whenever you don't partner and do
with the right people.
Correct. And so it's very important. Like we tell people like we don't want like everyone to be a part of Quintessa.
Yeah.
Like, it is a selective audience and it's been intentional that way because we want to make sure that they can do what they said they're going to do and we hold them accountable to it.
Yeah. What, I'm just curious, like with what I'm doing, like, yeah, they got to be good at sales and the back end. But if you're already selling the client, how are they screwing it up?
So I'll give you some of the things that happen.
Okay.
So communication, the number one bar complaint is communication, lack thereof, right? So let's say, for instance, I sign you up with a lawyer. We had a lawyer that told us, well, I wait 48 hours to contact.
You're like, no, contact them same day, like in 5 minutes.
Yeah. I'm like, first of all, I live transfer the lead to you. What do you mean? Like, this is signed. You need to get them set up with treatment. You need to pull the police report.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, that's not our process. I'm like, well, your process needs to change.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it comes down to personal injury lawyers. Like for the people that are hurt in an accident, they want money fast and they want it now. So if you're not helping them, they're just going to go right down the street because we're non-branded marketing. So it's not like they're calling in for the big billboard lawyer. They're calling in and we're educating them and selling them on why they should match with it.
I got hurt.
Correct.
What do I do?
Right. And so we really have to make sure that they're all over it from the very beginning and that their communication's clean and they're getting them set up with treatment, pulling the police report, contacting the defendant's insurance. So we really dig into like, what does the first 14 days look like? Because we even follow up with them for 30 days. So after we get it signed, we make sure that they're like happy with the attorney and that they're doing what they said they were going to do too.
Got it. How big is the company right now?
So we have about 100 employees right now.
How many are like in marketing and how many are in sales?
So I'd say 80% of our staff is in sales.
Yeah.
I mean, so it is
so labor intensive, man.
It is so labor intensive. So, but
gosh, I hate running sales teams.
It is, but you know what? What's funny is like culture of accountability is huge.
Yeah.
So they make $22 an hour starting out, and in Oklahoma, that's really good. But then they have uncapped commissions. So we have some people that are making like $120,000 a year.
Yeah.
And that to me is like that's what we want. Like we want to pay them really well.
Yeah.
And they do.
I
good.
feel like it's definitely, and I don't want to say this like in a weird way, but like it's definitely like a much easier sell in my opinion, because it's not like you have to collect anything from the client. Like it's not like, hey, I'm charging you all this money right now. Like in most cases, it's just like, yo, we're gonna go get you a settlement, sign here.
Yeah. It really kind of depends. So we're all about education. So most lawyers are most lawyers are searching for people that have been in an accident, searching terms like personal injury lawyer, which ends up being well over $800 a click, right? So we look at people that are looking for a rental car or looking for a police report or looking for, a car accident
To get your
lawyer as
costs
well.
down.
Right. And so because we have to be the intermediary. So
Mhm.
then we have to be really good at pivoting. Like, hey, I understand you need a rental car, or I understand that you need to get set up with treatment on a letter of protection. Well, we can match you with an attorney who can help you with that. And they're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Like people who retain a lawyer get 300% more than people who don't. So it's really a big education play on our end. And what we've told all of our lead vendors too, because we generate a lot of our stuff in house, but we also tell lead vendors because they're getting sick of working with attorneys because they're like, well, they're telling us our leads are junk whenever they're really not. So now we are saying like, hey, if you develop good leads, we want your leads too. Because the way I market's different than the way you market. Well, I mean, why don't we all just market together
Yeah.
and, become this big conglomerate? So that's really what Quintessa is becoming.
Got it. So, you start out running the company in different ways, right? You talk about just selling leads, and you talk about retainers, then you talk about, all this. Like what does the company do today? It's just simply you pay per closed lead already.
Yep.
That's
So
the
per signed
model.
retainer.
Per signed retainer.
Yep.
And so lawyers just got to look at, what's my average lifetime value of a client, and that's basically their math.
Yep. So what we ask them for is like, hey, if your cost per case is coming in at X, like what is your ROI? Like, is that are you making 3 to 6X on that ROI?
Right.
And if they say yes, then that's normally one of the ways that we vet them.
So their biggest unknown is just the fallout of a case.
Correct. And so that really
That's
is what it
operations.
comes down to. Right. And so that's what we really have to dig into, because 9 months later, if they're spending $500,000 a month with us and they're like, hey, my cost per case was $2,500, it ended up being $6,000. We're like, okay, what in the world happened? And so we dig into it with them and see like, where's the fallout? How can we help fix it? Because they need to make money. It has to make sense for both people. So we really are a partner more than just a lead gen. Like what we tell them is like, this is long-term for us. We want you to grow, and we want to grow alongside you too.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about, like how do you plan to scale? Because there's only so many good operators.
Yeah, there is. There's only so many good operators. But so we're actually going to open Quintessa Lite. And so we're going to start selling leads to people who are smaller and couldn't afford like the full-blown Quintessa version. And so we're actually going to be selling leads and starting intake services and doing that for them, where they can pay for leads and then pay for someone to close them, or pay for a live transfer, or pay for them to actually get it signed up for them themselves. So because we're only operating right now with probably the top 10% of lawyers in the United States. And, there's a lot more attorneys out there that need this.
Yeah,
And
they're just
so-
not elite yet.
Correct. And we could develop them, right?
Yeah.
Because we can help with the operational excellence. And so that's what we're starting to work on now, and be able to really scale that out with them.
Have you ever, this is like the chicken and the egg thing, but like clearly the other 90% needs coaching
Oh, yeah.
and to be developed. So have you thought about going in that space?
Yeah. So that
How else
is
are you going to teach
another
them
thing.
operational excellence?
Yeah. So that's one thing that we're doing, like with our software and everything. Like we're developing that SaaS to be able to have white papers and everything, and then subscribe to that, because a lot of the things that we do, it sounds so elementary, but at the end of the day, you go to law school to be a lawyer.
Yeah, they have no idea about leads or
Correct.
marketing or hiring.
Right. And so to us, I feel like really have mastered the hiring, because, we've completely had to strip down our company a couple of times and, rehire and hire differently, because this company hasn't been done. So there's not a playbook.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, I think it could work, but we'll find out. So we've tested a lot of different methods.
Let's talk about that, because I feel like, for me anyways, I've been in a season the last, call it 6 months, where I've had to restrip. And I think a lot of that is based on the economy. I think a lot of that's based on where the real estate market has been and where the education market is today versus 3-4 years ago. What are some things that you've had to do over the years, and like what are the lessons learned from it?
So, we use a survey now. We use Culture Index before we
use
hire.
Predictive Index.
Okay. And so that's really changed, because, an interview is just that. Like, it's like a first date. Like, it always seems great, right? But it tells you who you're going to be really at day 91.
Yeah.
So we have implemented that about 9 months ago. And we found out that 80% of our people that were hired at the time were inductive. and we needed 80% of our people to be deductive. So like I could not tell them every day what they needed to do. Like I could not put them, like it was just too much. That's not scalable. And so we really found that's really helped out a lot. And then we made profit sharing from bottom up. So everyone has uncapped commissions. And then as a company, like if we hit our targets and anything over that, we split with our executive leadership 50%.
Wow.
So we have really kind of changed the way that we do things while bringing in like the charities and like PTO and all of that. We also make sure we do daycare reimbursements for a lot of our females, like up to a certain point, because they were like, hey, I can't make too much because I'm losing my funding for daycare. And I was like, that's ridiculous. Like you need to want to make more.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's the wrong mentality, but they were showing how they made less because then they had to pay for daycare. So we're like, we're going to stop that. We're going to change that right now.
Wow.
And then we started bringing in on weekends, like we brought in lunch for them. And then like we did PTO to where they can volunteer at charities and like it doesn't count against their normal PTO. So we're really trying to redefine like what does that look like? But then also like we are quick to fire. Like we are like, hey, listen, you are very clear on responsibilities. You know exactly what you're there for. If you hurt any of the values, you're not living to integrity, like, I'm sorry, this just isn't the place.
Yeah.
And everyone's on the same page. So I think that's really helped with that. And then we also do EOS with traction.
Yep.
And so those are a couple of things that we've implemented that it's really helped. I mean, we're not perfect, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's allowed us to scale because you can't scale you, right? Like that's the biggest problem is like you as a CEO, you need to cast the vision and you have to have the operators and everyone else, like your team members fall in line. And so that's what we've really tried to work on.
So Wealth Builders, you might have recently heard that we launched Wealthy University, which has access to all of our courses. You get weekly calls with me and our team. You also get access to special trainings, many of which have been done by people who are on this podcast, as well as recordings of WealthCon and other workshops and events that we've done. But even though that was good, I actually want to make it risk-free for you to try for yourself. I'm giving all of the podcast listeners a 14-day free trial by simply going to wealthyuniversity.com/podcast. So if you go check out that link, you'll be able to get access to your 14-day free trial right now. You'll be able to go check out the course. You'll be able to go check out calls, trainings, and everything else, and then see if it's a fit for you. There's literally no risk to doing it. So go to wealthyuniversity.com/podcast and go get your free 14-day trial of Wealthy University today. With this team, you said 80% of the force is salespeople, which makes sense, right? Like marketing is far easier to scale than sales. It's like, yeah, we just click more right here and we're good. But, now we need people to work these leads.
Right.
Now we got to find them, train them, hold them accountable, all those things. And I'm just curious, like to generate all these leads for all these companies, like how many leads are you guys generating a month?
I mean, it's well over, I was just looking before this too. So we generate about 1,100 leads yesterday is what we did. And so we're signing about 130 to 140 retainers a day.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is a lot.
It's a lot.
So, basically a sales rep's getting 1 to 2 deals a day.
Yeah. So if you're new, the goal is 2.
Okay.
If you're experienced, the goal is 3 to 6.
Got it.
So because they're there 8 hours and we're like, you should be able to close it. Average deal takes about 30 minutes.
Right. So what are you guys spending a month on marketing to generate that much flow?
I mean, it's a lot of money. So right now it kind of depends, but our goal, normally it's about $2 million a month that we spend on marketing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, that's just the business.
That is just the business.
It is what it is.
It is.
So would you consider yourself like, you're kind of an agency, but like, what would you call yourself? You're like a partner, kind of?
Yeah. I mean, I think for sure we're a partner, but I mean, we are just people come to us and we're like, hey, we generate the leads. We're just the lead generator, right? Because we're not doing it on their brand and we're doing it on our own.
Right.
Because what happened with SEO is like, I got someone ranked number 1. Well,
they don't need you no more.
Right. And then I got fired. And I'm like, you're so good at your job, you get fired.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, that's not going to happen anymore. So what's funny is like, if an attorney's difficult, right, then we can plug and play and say, hey, we're not going to work with this one anymore. We'll work with the competitor.
Yeah.
And we don't lose any of our market share. So, I mean, we're just the lead generator. And really, it's just a retainer generator is what we are.
Yeah. Yeah. To get those Do you still call them retainers?
Yep.
So wait, do they still pay a monthly retainer too?
They do. So
Okay.
they have like their, it's easy to math. We used to charge different for commercial versus like a normal. Like if you were hit by a semi, we used to charge more than if you were hit by a normal motor vehicle.
Whoa.
And so yeah, but the problem was you're
It's kind of
still
confusing.
arguing with attorneys. Yes, and
Yeah.
it's not scalable. So our goal is like we want to make it so simple. Like if you want 100 retainers, it costs X amount of dollars. You call us, we get them signed, and then we're ready to go.
Right. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So, with the marketing and sales team, how are you recruiting and training? Like, tell me about that process.
So we actually, with Culture Index, like you can actually get the words or whatever of who you want to be able to appeal to. So we're actually generating the ads specific to the personality that we want to hire.
So you're running traffic for salespeople right now.
Correct.
Okay.
And so people will click on it, and we're not, instead of getting like tons of volume, so instead of having 500 people apply, it's 50, but they're 50 of the right personality profiles. So it scares the people away that do not want or have anything to do with sales, because everyone wants to think that sales and making that money sounds really great until they actually get in and they're like, this is not for me.
I don't want to dial.
Yeah, never mind. And they just freeze on the phone. Whereas like this is like catered to them specifically. And then, when it comes to marketing, if we're hiring marketing people, we make them actually show us, like, go develop a campaign, show me you can get car accident leads before we end up hiring them.
Yeah.
But the salespeople, they just have to learn to close it.
Got it. On the marketing side, what is it still mainly PPC and SEO?
So we have a lot of social and
Got
then no SEO. Like all of our stuff is really pay to play.
So it's Facebook ads, YouTube ads, all that stuff.
All the stuff, yeah.
Why do you just think SEO is dead now? Like what?
I mean, there's like 10 spots above SEO, the first ranking, right?
With PPC.
Yeah. And so I think like I'll do like different blogs and things of that nature that help with the SEO. But to me, like I want instant gratification. Like I want to be able to get in. So like, for instance, if I came into Nevada tomorrow and someone says, hey, I need a case, within 24 hours, we can turn on our pay-per-click because we have the recipe.
Yeah.
And we can get it, within 24 hours. SEO takes a long time. That's a long-term play. And then it's really hard, because it keeps changing in that algorithm and all
keep
of
putting
that.
out content.
Yeah. And so it's a full-time gig, whereas like you can throw it on YouTube, you can go on Facebook and, in 45 minutes you have a lead.
Yeah.
And so that's what and it's scalable. Like we're able to do that.
Yeah. I was thinking about this as we've, as I've spent millions on myself for ads, and I'm constantly making new creatives and different things. And I'm like, man, dude, I'm starting to like make more ad content than I'm making, organic, what I would call normal, just real content. And it made me think about, I guess the power of PPC, where it's like much less of a burden on the content side versus the social side.
Yes, it is. I mean, like seeing your content, like it's a full-time job.
Oh yeah.
It is full time. And then you have this and a family and all of that. And like, to me, like I don't have the time. Like it's something that we're having to make more time for and do that. But
do you just use actors or something?
Yeah, we'll do actors and things of that nature. But when it comes to like the education side and helping the attorneys be better.
That has to be you.
Yeah. But like for everyone, like I'm not going to go out there and say like, hey, hurt in a wreck, call us. Like that's not my gig. But what we will do though is tell the attorneys why they should have taken the case, or, what's wrong with it or what they're doing.
Yeah. You like the educational side to help them build their business. Yeah. I have a couple of friends who are in that space that, they're on the education side and they run traffic for them. One of the guys, his name's Bill Hauser, and he's doing that.
Yep. We know Bill very well.
So I've given him some tips and pointers on the organic social media side. But I think his business model is like a hybrid of everything you're talking about.
Yeah, I think everyone thinks the retainers sound really sexy until they try to do it. And then they're like, dear God, never mind. Like, get me out of here.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, people are like, can I just refer you clients that you can do this for?
Exactly.
And so we've become, I think it's kind of a testament, right? Like, I'll tell you how difficult it is, but we've really mastered that. And that's our niche. So,
yeah. No, it's awesome. Do you ever see yourself expanding into other niches? Because clearly marketing, you could do it for anything, but you know that space and those people got money.
Yes. I mean, that's the thing. Like 3 to 6x, like it's great, right? Because you know what you can charge for it. But yeah, I mean, after we dominate this space and then kind of go into the mass tort side, then we will like into other competitive industries and things like that. So we do real estate right now. Like we have our own real estate and I come from a long line of real estate people. And it's funny because I said I would never do it. But like we've started generating leads and stuff for my mom because she does a bunch of real estate. And like we're seeing how bad that industry is too, kind of like what you're saying.
Yeah.
And, like you pay for Zillow to do a media buy. And like whenever there are no homes.
Guys, don't buy Zillow leads, please.
It's horrible. It's horrible. And then you have like, it's just insane.
Yeah.
And seeing how much money there is and how competitive it can be. It's like we're just trying to help formalize that too.
The more smart people I talk to like you, and the more I get just better and better at marketing. Cause like I learned marketing only pretty recently. Let's just say in the last 4 years. And that was when I got on social media. And then I was like, oh, they're like, bro, please retarget somebody. And I was like, I spend $0 on ads. Everything's organic. And he's like, dude, just please let me run retargeting campaigns for you for anyone who's watched your stuff. And I'm like, whatever, dude. And, then I hire agencies and I learn the game and then I build my own in-house team out. And I'm like, okay, I understand like that this is like a very small but powerful area of business that so few will ever know.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this makes sense that like there's such big money on this side. That's why Gary Vee does it. I just had Neil Patel at my event last week. I don't know how many freaking billions this guy has managed in ad spend. And I'm like, okay, this makes perfect sense to me why this skill is so powerful and lucrative.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think once you've cracked marketing, I mean, you can go anywhere and do anything.
I could market whatever.
Exactly. And so I think but I think it really comes down to problem solving, right? And like being competitive. Like for me, it pisses me off when I see someone above me. I'm like, no, sir. Like, and then you go in and you be competitive. And then that's why we've been really well.
Yeah.
And so like agility to me is really big. And also we're stewards, right? So because we give away half our profit, like I have to make sure we're hitting our margins
you have a duty to be
day.
excellent.
Yes. And so that's one thing that it is at the DNA level. Like the green, yellow, red, it obviously means something different, right, than eating out. But our employees, like our team members, they know, okay, if we're green, like we're doing great. We're in the money. That's where we're hitting our bonuses. Like yellow, like and then red is like all hands on deck. What is going on? How are we figuring this out? So simplifying was very important as we grow because there's a tend to complexify. I don't even know if that's a word, but like you make everything complex, right?
Yeah.
And so as we've scaled, making everything simple, and then like whether it be in marketing or whether it be everyone speaking the same language, like everyone has to be on the same page.
Yeah. Like so here's another thing I've seen that's tough. As I've hired agencies for small businesses and stuff, like I think it's a great little side hustle for somebody starting. It's like, okay, if you run the ads and you do like, okay, cool. Like you can easily get clients and go make 10 grand a month, 20 grand a month, whatever. And then I've just noticed like once you start to try and get bigger clients and everything, it becomes a tough sell. Like there's this weird space of small business. And then like where you're going is like people willing to spend, hundreds of thousands a month on marketing, which is okay. They're at a different scale. Like, cool. They don't mind paying all this money, but then like you get those entrepreneurs who are only willing to spend 10 grand a month, 20 grand a month on marketing max. Like it's a weird box where I'm like, man, how do these guys make money? Because they have so much overhead with all their staff and copywriters and ad buyers and everything. Then they got their cost to even find that person who's willing to pay them, and they got to spend money to market to get them. Then they got to spend money to get the leads. Then they got to spend money to go get talent. And I'm like, most agencies I see that start to like actually try to scale don't make money.
No.
And you make money basically when you're a nobody. Then you don't make money as you scale. And then if you reach the levels of like finally getting some big they don't even have to be enterprise type level people, but like bigger people, then you're like back to making good
Oh
money.
yeah. I mean, it was kind of with us too. Like we made more money when we were small.
Yeah.
So it's like when you're medium, like
It's hard when you're medium.
It is thin margins.
Yeah.
Right. And so you have to be either small or large. And then when you're,
Yep.
that's it. Like
that's literally what the conclusion I came to.
Yeah, it is. And so I'm like, okay, well, I'm not going to be, when you're small, someone could come take you out.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, well, if I want the margins and I want the lifestyle and I need to give away half, then I've got to be large. Like I have
there's no in between.
No. And so for us, and I feel like this is my calling.
Yeah.
Like I feel like I am, for whatever reason, like the personal injury queen, right? Like this is what we do. This is what I was called to do. And when you have that calling, like doors open, and that's just kind of what we've seen.
So what kind of margins are the goal once you get to scale?
So for us, 30% margins of our company is kind of like what we strive for.
Yeah.
Right. And doesn't always happen. You know, we hired a lot of top tier talent and we had to restructure and redo our model. That was really scary while having, I mean, he's 8 months old right now, but you know, getting everyone to kind of jive, like that was hard. And it's a bunch of, you know, I was really nervous because I hadn't had a good COO. Like I was really nervous about like, what if they come and try to steal the company? Or what if they, you know, come and try to replicate, right? When they see the margins. And whenever we really stepped out that these were the right people, we've seen the growth really just compound. And they're invested just as much as I am.
Yeah.
Because we've kind of changed the narrative on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What's that like being a woman entrepreneur at such a high level? Because there's so few of them like doing what you do. And, you know, it's like, you're like, I got an 8-month-old. And that means a very different thing for you than it does for me.
Yes.
Because I have a 9-month-old and he's at home right now and he's chilling.
Yeah.
I don't have to deal with it.
It's, you know, I'd say I think any CEO, if they're being honest, it's lonely at the top.
Yeah.
Like anyone would tell you that. I'd say as a female, you know, when you're assertive, then you're you know what? And if you are aggressive in a male dominated industry, then like, it's like you are just thought of as a pariah, right?
Yeah. Think about the lawyer space.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
Just, what are the stats? How many lawyers are men?
It's, well, it's less than 1% that are females.
Women.
Like
yeah. I was going to say 90%, but yeah, 1%.
Yeah, it's pretty hard. And then you also take being in lead generator and then dealing with personal injury lawyers and dealing with egos.
Yeah.
Like,
oh man, that's got to be the most egotistical industry.
It is. I mean, because they want to see, like, think of like Donald Trump, right? Like you want to see your face like on billboards, right? All these guys, and you're trying to tell someone who's done it for 20 years that you're going to do it differently and their brand's not going to be in it.
I'm gonna just market the way we market, just make money.
And so what's funny is the one, I'd say trait that we love seeing is humility of like, hey, listen, you're great at generating leads. I just want everything you can get. I'm like, you're my guy. Like you are the one I want. But as far as a female entrepreneur, I'd say, you know, it's hard because you are trying to be all things to all people. So you want to be the best CEO. You want to be the best wife. You want to be the best mom. And that's a lot of different hats.
Yeah.
And so it was funny. I had a conversation yesterday about, you know, I feel like enough is never enough. Like you feel like you're called to be more. And they said it's something you always are going to have to manage. Of like you have this calling, but you still have to be able to be the best wife, the best mom, you know, the best CEO. And it's always something that you're going to struggle with. And I think just knowing that of like, okay, like this is something that you have to manage and it's a consistent conversation. So it's lots of conversations with my husband, like with our kids, like and making sure I'm not missing out on the things that are really important to me. So I try to wrap the schedules of like traveling and everything around, like if my daughter has something that's really important or if our kids have a basketball game, right? Like I'm trying to schedule that stuff first. And again, I am not perfect, but you know, we figure it out along the way for sure.
Yeah. And it's not easy to any degree, even for the dads and the husbands. And
oh no,
you know, whether your wife works in the business or she stays at home, you know, it's interesting because my wife, she's been a stay-at-home mom. We have 3 kids, 5 and under. And now she's starting to be more involved at our events and in the ministry and everything. So she's having to, you know, do more work outside of her normal work. Right. And so that's like a whole new balance of like, all all right, well, we have this big, we have a massive Christian event coming up next month called the Kingdom Summit. So it's like a 1-day deal, all for the nonprofit. So I got like Ed Milet coming and
That's
Girls
great.
Gone Bible and Tim Ross and my boy Ruslan and all these great either pastors or Christian entrepreneurs or Christian YouTubers, influencers. Then I got a massive concert with my buddy Jordan Feliz. So it's just going to be this 1-day banger. And she is basically like the head of worship. And so she's a keys player. She loves worship. She's, played at the church and stuff. And she's in charge of like all the musical sets and, making sure that that's good and getting all the singers and the drummers and all this stuff. And there's a lot of work for her.
Oh, yeah.
And she obviously wants to do it with excellence and great. And for me, I throw events for a living. So I'm just like, yeah, it all sort itself out. We have a good team.
Yeah, it's fine. It's good.
I'm like, babe, it's going to be good. And she's like, yeah, because we're all doing the work. And
I know.
I'm like, yeah, but I trust you guys. You guys are going to do it. I'll just, I'll do what I do. I'll get people in the seats and, I'll go on stage and it's going to be great.
Well, and what's funny is like, my husband, he came on, we didn't start working together until we were engaged. Like that was the deal. Until we were engaged, he wouldn't come on and work.
Yeah.
But he worked HR at one of the largest hospital chains in Oklahoma. So I was his HR nightmare, right? So he's like, you can't do that. Like you cannot. He's like, if we're gonna scale, this is what we have to do. I'm like, what do you mean we have to do this? So he came in and scaled all of that, and then built the processes and really the excellence behind the idea. But it was really important because, like you said, you can't scale you. It's like you have these great ideas, but you have to bring in people behind you. And I think with your wife, right? Like there's no better partner to have with you because it's someone you trust implicitly.
Yeah.
And it's great to do it together because then you get to see everything.
Yeah. Well, and she loves it because, her priority is first and foremost our family.
Yeah.
And so she has no desire to like be over here in the office every day doing whatever. And her heart is for ministry. And so when we do a ministry related event, she's like, I'm all in. Like I'm going hardcore. And then when I talk about flipping houses and whatever, she's like, yeah, you, whatever, just
I'm back out.
Go have fun. Oh, you want to go like make ads? Like, that's great. You just, whatever, dude.
Yeah.
So it's funny. It works good. But I think the point I want to make to anyone listening, because we have a lot of husbands and wives and we have a lot of Christians and others who listen, is like, there's lots of ways to work together in business. And a lot of times they only hear my perspective, which is, like I just said, Mindy's a stay at home and that's the way we like it. It's the way we've always wanted to be, but it doesn't mean that husbands and wives can't work together and still have a, tight family with kids and everything while working in the business.
Well, I think, my husband and I, we have very separate lanes, right? Like we know I'm good at this and he's good at that. And so we don't cross over, right? Whenever it comes to that. And I think whenever we both decided if we're going to work together, you're going to scale this side, I'm going to do this. And then if there's problems, like we have to sort it out, not in front of anyone, but behind closed doors. And then when we're home, it's like, okay, we're not going to try to talk about work, right?
Yeah.
We're going to talk about what's going on. But then it's not a problem of like, hey, if I have to take a call for a minute, he's like, I got the kids. Right? Because he knows and he gets it. And we're all working towards the greater goal. And we all know like, this is our why, this is what we're doing. And it's, and for some couples it may not, but for us, it's really worked out really well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I love it. So you had mentioned before that you were starting to get offers for the company and people, offer 9 figures and everything else. Like walk me through that process. Why didn't it work out? What did you learn?
So, a little over a year ago, I'm in YPO and I was sitting
I'm in YPO too.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And, when you're building a company, your head's kind of in the sand. Like you have no idea really what you have. And I was going to lunch with someone from YPO and he was like, why haven't you sold your company? And I'm like, well, I don't think it could really bring. And he was like, no. Like it could make a lot of money. Like what if I put you with an investment maker?
Yeah.
And so I called my husband and at that time, like we were starting to go through like fertility treatments and all of that. And I was really like, do I want to do this anymore?
And have a kid.
And have a kid and deal with this like crazy attorneys. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I mean, let's just find out, like, what's
Yeah.
the company worth? Well, I mean, the the public responded and they were like, it's worth a lot of money.
Yeah.
And so we started going through this process and finding out and talking to different people. And I I found out, like, through strategics and private equity of like, okay, we would like this, we wouldn't like that. But we had probably 100 companies that had wanted to see our deck. And then, like, out of 100, probably 15 put in LOIs. And it was supposed to be wrapped whenever I was like 6 months pregnant. Well, but then, like, it just kind of, of course, it always takes longer. So I get to being 8 months pregnant, have multiple offers, 9 figures, and I've got this uneasiness. Like, I'm at the Global Leadership Summit in Chicago, and I'm sitting with my husband, and I just leaned over and I'm like, I don't feel like we should do the deal, like
Mm.
any of them.
Just spiritually.
Yes. Like, I don't like the Holy Spirit is a real thing, but there is also like a physical reaction. I'm like breaking out and like red splotches. I'm like, I have such just a stress, and it's not my baby. Like, there is something wrong. Like,
Yeah.
there is something, and I don't know what it is. Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing, but I don't think I'm supposed to sell it. And so here I am thinking of like riding off into the sunset, generational wealth, going to be finished, and completely pulling it. And, but what was great is my husband was like, okay, like, if that's what you think, if that's what you've prayed about, like, we won't do it. And so so I was 8 months pregnant, so had Wilder, and, was really praying and trying to figure out, like, what am I supposed to do right now? Am I supposed to scale it? Like, should I shut it down? Because the leadership team I had around me, they made me completely question my why. Like, completely question, like, if this was scalable. And then our COO at the time was like, well, maybe you shouldn't give away half. And I was like, I have the wrong people.
Yeah. They don't get it.
They don't get it. And I told Leo, I was like, I am really nervous about this. Like, I'm going to leave and I'm not going to come back to having a company.
Mm-hmm.
So we reached out and we found through Bobby Greenwald at YouVersion, he was like, hey, I'm at this company that does fractional COO work. And it was called For Scaling. And so they set me up with a COO, and he came in. And then we also set up with Culture Index with Michael Hall in Dallas. And our rep came in and was like, hey, like, you've got a lot of the wrong right people, right seat issues, right? Like, whatever you want to say. And we need to rebuild pretty much your staff. And I'm like, okay, so real quick. So I'm 8.5 months pregnant. You want to do what? And I'm like, so are you going to?
Everyone else is telling me this is great.
Yeah. I'm like, they said I was worth 9 figures. Like, what do you mean? But the feedback they gave was, we want to keep you. We want to keep your husband. We want to keep your idea, but we want to completely replace your leadership team, because they were not impressive. And so they came in, with For Scaling and with Culture Index, and they helped me completely restructure the company, brought in a COO, Dwayne, and he started like kind of assembling his A team. And really then we went from 40 employees less than 7 months ago up to 100, like today. And it's really an ingredient of getting in the top tier talent, but getting the right people who believe in what we're doing to be able to really scale that. And so we got clear on, okay, like, we're going to make this $1 billion company. Like, we know what's out there. We know what we can do. And the goal is like real clear, is like world domination of the personal injury space.
Right.
And so everyone believes in it now. They're super competitive, and that's what we're moving towards.
How different has it been seeing the talent difference?
They're making decisions without me, like without me driving it. And at first I was like, wait, like FOMO almost. Like, what do you mean I didn't? Like, you don't need my input? Like, am I of any value? So it was almost like imposter syndrome of like, am I going to be able to do, what do you mean? Like, what does a real CEO do? Like, cause I don't know, cause I had been doing all things to all people.
Yeah.
And so now though, I've kind of settled in to like seeing what they're doing. And then I'm more of like the subject matter expert now, because I operated the business for so long. So when something's happening, it's like, hey, listen, it seems like this is probably what's wrong. Because I was running like the accounting to the marketing to whatever.
Then they learn, and then they're like, all right, we don't need you anymore.
Yeah. They're like, go away, go do a podcast, or go do something, go travel, go. And so I get to do what I love now, which is, we started like the Give 50 pledge, which is trying to help more businesses with irrational generosity and help them with operational excellence to be able to do that. And then I get to go visit personal injury lawyers and help them and sell them on what we do and why we're different. And that's been a really fun
So
kind of
your
change of
job at this
times.
point is obviously getting awareness for the company and then signing big lawyers.
Yeah, the whales. Like
Yeah.
that is my responsibility.
How do you get the whales in the door? Because they're already spending millions on different things.
Yep. So I send them a really big bottle of Quintessa, like the Magnum version, and it says life is too short to buy bad leads or drink cheap wine. And I just say cheers, Lauren Vaughn. And then normally, like that's just like we identify the top people we want. And then I'll ask for an introduction from one of our attorneys, or I just reach out to them. And then normally we have conversations, and some of them it'll end up being that like, yeah, they're not interested in it. Or some of them they're like, no, like we've heard about you, like we'd love to try it. And so that's been really what I've done right now. And
Yeah.
it's worked out pretty well.
What do you think about like the current lawyer marketing practices? Because when I look at it as a marketer myself, and I'm like, how are these guys making money, dude? Like spending so much money on billboards. So like, and then how are they even like KPIing it and tracking and attributing to like what it is?
I mean, what's so funny is we'll talk to some attorneys and I'm like, what's your cost per case? And they're like, I don't know.
Yeah, they have no idea.
And I'm like, what? Like how? But it's because their ROI is so great. Like if you're making 3 to 6x, you're like, like I know my payroll.
I know it works.
I know it works. Like
yeah,
I still
I'm spending $100K a month and
it's fine.
We're good. We're making
right?
$500K.
But what's interesting is the ones that actually know. I mean, I am one. If you're just doing billboards, I don't think it works, right?
Yeah.
But some of these guys, you know, they've been doing TV for so long, and people know them, right? But it'll be interesting when the next generation comes up of like, well, they don't watch TV.
They're gonna know how to do marketing.
Yes. And so what's funny is some of these young lawyers, they're the ones who call us. They're like, hey, I want to be whatever the largest one is here, right? Like I want to be that guy.
I want exclusivity.
Yeah. And so they'll call me and I'm like, yeah. And because the power of Quintessa, right? Like if you want 100 cases a month, you just come to us. And so we're now competing with the big boys. And so now we're like, either you come alongside of us or man, like we're going to pretty much be a huge competitor in your market and we're going to drive up market prices. And so that's, it's been really interesting seeing some of these lawyers and how they market now, because the days of getting like an $800 case, like they're gone. Like it used to be so cheap to develop cases and now it's not. Like it's $2,500, I'd say minimum across the board is what we've seen.
Got it. And with like some lawyers that I've just seen since I was a kid and I see him still cranking and expanding is like Glenn Lerner.
Oh yeah.
The heavy hitter.
Yes.
And I'm like, that dude's got good branding. And then he teamed up with Rowe and I've seen him in Arizona and stuff too. And I'm like, I wonder what these guys are doing, man, because I'm so curious how their business works because they're just really good marketers.
Yeah, they are. I mean, they've had a really powerful brand, right? And so Glenn Lerner's got a pretty cool story, but he's, from Pennsylvania, but did TV advertising whenever it became legal, right? I mean, so 1982. So you've got these guys doing TV commercials.
I've literally seen them sinse I was a kid.
Yes. I mean, and that's what they do. And so, and then they're on every bus, they're on every billboard.
Yep.
So
bright yellow.
Yes, bright yellow. And he's got he sounds like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like, I mean, like you hear him on
And then
TV.
he's a little guy, I heard too.
Yes, he's short with a big chain, big cross. Like if you see him in person, yeah.
That's funny. I need to have him on. I just want to hear about his marketing journey.
Yes, it's very interesting. But TV commercials for sure are a huge thing for them,
Yeah.
Yeah, and billboards, but for sure TV
Yeah,
commercials.
they're just super heavy on like what I just call old school marketing.
Yep, just the normal media. And what's funny is you look at a lot of these guys, because we'll look at Kantar reports and everything and see like, how much are you spending on pay-per-click? And it's still funny seeing 95% of their budget TV. And I'm like, that's going to go away. Like it's going to happen. So it'll be interesting seeing whenever they have to shift.
Yeah. I've spent millions on TV too. So I ran TV commercials to buy people's houses and they've been great for years. I mean, I was always getting a 3 to 4X and just recently and I always outsourced it, but to your point, it's like, obviously at some point it'll end, who knows when. Right. But now that I've learned how to do all these other digital strategies, it's like these are higher ROIs. We can control them. But the good thing with TV was we literally ran the same commercial for 4 years.
That's great.
So
that's the power of a good ad.
Yeah, like I did not need to keep filming creative or anything. It was just like, yeah, what do we want to spend? All right, that sounds good. Boom. And then, the only problem was we just saw that every time we tried to spend more, just nothing different would happen.
Yep.
And so with like every marketing channel, it's like, yeah, at some point you get diminishing returns.
Right. And that's the thing is kind of like, you remember the yellow pages, right? Like every lawyer wanted to be the front of the yellow pages. And then whenever SEO came about, they're like, there's no way this is going to work.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, it's here. It's working. And then when social media came, they're like, well, there's no way. And I'm like, if you're not in every form of media, like you're losing the opportunity to see a client. Like
what do you think is the next big opportunity?
I mean, programmatic, man, that is something interesting because
Explain
all
what
of
that
these,
is.
so to me, like the Hulu, like all of these people are now not watching TV.
Yeah.
Right. And so you're now seeing these younger generation of people that are looking to TikTok or searching through AI before going on Google or watching TV commercials on Hulu. And so it's an entirely different type of advertising, and they don't come down to the speed and greed. They actually want to be educated. They're like, well, I saw this lawyer on TikTok that says that I should make X amount of dollars. So like, what are you even saying right now? Like, what does that mean?
Like we're already educated.
Right.
Prove to us you can do what we learned.
Right. And so it's being able, like having to explain to them, but I really think that side of it, and then social, like who knows where it's going to go.
Yeah.
But we have seen such a untapped market, and it's a different market. So it's not the people that were watching like Jerry Springer, right? Like that's what the audience that people were appealing to with the TV commercials. It was the daytime television.
Yeah.
Well, now this is an entirely different sect of people that are doing research that you have to sell. So it's more imperative than now, I'd say more than ever, that you have to have good salespeople because you have to be able to overcome objections.
Yeah, they need a lot more product knowledge than ever before.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just be a slick salesperson.
Well, and now, so in Arizona, they made a rule to where it's called an ABS, like an alternative business structure, where you can be a non-attorney owner of a law firm. And when they did this, all these marketers came in because they think, okay, now's my time.
Now they can go get referral fees.
Right. And so people came in there. Well, then they started lowering the fees, meaning like standard in the industry is about 1/3. That's what a lawyer takes of the settlement. Well, you have these marketers coming in saying, hey, we'll only charge 20%.
Yeah.
And so now you have to fight. Well, I understand they only want to take 20%, but they don't know what they're doing. Like you need to go with someone who is a leader in the industry. So it's becoming very competitive from what it used to be.
Yeah.
Much different.
Yeah. My, one of my one-on-one clients, his name's Ryan Sandstrom. He, is a lawyer out in Arizona.
Yeah.
And so he first came to me to learn organic social media marketing, right? Because everything he's doing right now is, referral based. And, he's made millions and millions from just pure referral networking and everything else. And, it's just interesting to see, hear him talk about that specific thing in Arizona. Cause he's like, yeah, because we're in Arizona, we can do X, Y. He's a lawyer though. So it's not like he's one of these marketers, but, he's trying to become a marketer.
Right.
Because, that at the end of the day, every business owner to scale, you have to just figure out your marketing.
Yeah.
That's the first step.
It is. And what's funny is you're like, no, I'll hire someone. I'm like, but what if they go away? Like, if you don't understand it. Yeah. I had a conversation with a guy yesterday. He runs a huge dental practice, and he was showing me their marketing bill. He's like, it's $55,000 and $37,000 a month comes from pay-per-click. And he was like, and it's in these markets. I'm like, okay, well, let's Google you. So we start Googling, and he's like, I don't rank. And I'm like, that's a problem. And it's so many people are just taken advantage of because these marketers say, oh, I'm doing XYZ. There's no check and balance, right? And they just take advantage because you're there running the business. Like it's hard to tell a CEO or an entrepreneur, like, oh, by the way, I know you want to start this, but you also have to do all the marketing too and understand it. Because if you don't, like, if you're not bringing in new clients, like you could lose this beautiful vision that you have. So it's almost a different mindset to be able to do it and then understand it and then find someone who can scale you and grow you and trust them to be able to do it. So
Mm-hmm.
it's very different.
Yeah, like what's your opinion on agencies and everything else then at that point
You know,
for any business?
I would say transparency is key.
Yeah.
So I believe in stewardship. And to me, if you are giving any sort of, whether it's $1 or whether it's $100,000, they should be able to show you where it went. They
Right.
should be able to track it. You should be able to know your ROI. And if they can tell you, if they say, hey, well, I don't know how to show you how much you've gotten from it, you've got the wrong marketer. They should be able to have vanity phone numbers on there. They should be able to play recordings. You should be able to track back your ROI. And if someone's like, we can't do that, they're the wrong person for you.
Mm, got it. So it's just like my opinion has been that if you're at a small level, it's going to be cheaper for you to just hire an agency
Yeah.
at the end of the day because you're going to go build out. Because a lot of my students are like, well, Ryan, should I just start running Facebook ads myself? And I'm like, dude,
Don't do it.
don't do it. I'm like,
Don't do it.
trust me, man. Like I've spent millions on this stuff. You want to go learn a whole new thing and like totally neglect your real estate business, then do it.
Right.
But in the meantime, just go pay a retainer and let them do it.
Right.
And you just keep closing deals and running your business. So I do think that my opinion is there are certain marketing things in every industry that you could do yourself.
Yep.
Then there are some things that you should just outsource, have agencies do them. And then maybe when you get to scale, think about doing it in-house when you can go build out your own internal marketing department.
Yeah. I think, for us, where we are is like, if anyone is good at what they do, instead of them selling to an attorney, I'd rather them sell to us.
Yeah.
And so we're of that mindset of like, hey, I don't care who you are, right? Like send us your leads as opposed to going to an attorney. Because we'll give you the actual ROI because of our operational excellence. We can tell you if they're good or not. But for people, I think it's really important to have a good team, a strong team. And then, like you said, like lean on people who have the excellence in certain divisions and learn from them, and then use them as a consultant and hire your own team. But, have a structure for sure.
Yeah. No, I agree. What do you think about, you had mentioned it a little bit earlier, but like market saturation, do you think that there's a cap to what can be spent, on PPC? Like, would you go to Vegas and be like, yeah, I don't know, $1 million, $10 million can be spent per month on this. And, it looks like, are you back ending it saying, all right, as long as our cost per lead remains this, that means that we haven't become oversaturated. But the moment it starts charging double, then we know that there's just too many players in the space. Like, how do you do that?
Well, what we do is we do it in increments, right? So for instance, like right now we get over 500 cases a month in Ohio. I'm like, what? Like, what is this? How does this happen? Like, I would have never thought that. But what we do is we kind of do it in a market push. So our goal is in Texas, California, Florida to be developing 3,000 retainers a month. So this year our goal is to end well over doing 10,000 retainers a month. And so what we do is we sell them in thousand increments. So in Texas, we've sold our first 1,000 and we're holding that. We're developing them every single month and everything's filled by like the 17th of the month. So we know that we still have more bandwidth and I haven't even maximized any of my spend. So we really go out and kind of test it and test the different strategies and see like, okay, how is it going? What's the ROI? Are we hitting our numbers? Are the lawyers' conversion rates holding? We really look at it that way. I mean, initially it was, hey, I want to control 1% of the accidents in the United States. And then we started controlling 1%. And it's like, okay, well, maybe it's more than that, right? Because we sell differently. So for us, I mean, that's kind of how we're doing it now. There will be a point of market saturation, but we're not even close to it.
Yeah. That's what I wanted to just hear you say it because not for myself, but for the viewers, because so many people are like, well, dude, they're in this market and they're in this market and, everyone's going to be calling the sellers and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, guys, trust me, that's not the issue.
No, it's not. I mean, I think you have to get creative. If you're going to do everything the same way that everyone else is doing it, then yes, there's market saturation, but that's where you get creative, right? And figure out like, what's a different strategy? How can I try something different? And then whenever ever people start coming into that side, then you got to go create again. So you just have to be innovative.
Yeah, I agree. And that's where, like I've been telling even our clients with what we're doing on the marketing side for sellers, I'm like, dude, you don't realize I'm making new creatives every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks. We're testing new landing pages and VSLs and buttons and copy and all this stuff that I know the competitors just aren't doing.
Yes, 100%. I mean, it's huge being able to have a competitive edge on everybody, because that's like I'm a firm believer. Like, I'll tell you exactly what I'm doing, and I'll still beat you, because like you're not going to be able to
Yeah,
compete
to
against us.
execute it is another ball game.
Yes, and that's kind of what we rely on. And so, as long as I think you have a good team behind you to be able to execute that, like, you'll continue to stay on top.
Well, this has been super insightful. I'm glad that Chris linked us up, and
Yeah.
I'm just super excited to see what you do. Like as a nerd, I'm picking your brain about marketing, but I'm more so excited to see what you do on the faith-based side and on the giving side, and how many people that impacts, and just opens people's minds to what they could be doing.
Yeah, it's a very exciting time. Give 50 has been a big movement we're pushing right now, so we're excited to see what happens with it.
Awesome. Well, guys, if you enjoyed this, make sure you subscribed. We will link to all of Lauren's, this. What is Give 50s like? Is there a website for it or anything?
Yep. So it's give50.org, and then the Instagram is just at give50.
Okay. So we'll link to that down below, and we'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.